Welcome back to the WatchWell Podcast. My name is Parker. This is my co-host Nick. Nick, we've got a good episode scheduled for today.
Yeah, I think we do.
We do. I'm excited to be back. New year, new goals. Last week was a great episode. We had Nefarious come out, and that was a fun episode. And this week we've got Rocky, starting the year off in the mood of resolutions, New Year's resolutions. So why not be encouraged with a movie like Rocky, right?
Yep.
And before I
Meeting
forget,
goals.
meeting goals. Yeah, we talked about
Mhm.
that a little bit last week. And then real quick before I forget, how was your week?
My week was fine, Parker.
You thought I was going to forget, didn't you?
I was kind of hoping you kind of jumped right
I
into
did. I jumped right in.
episode stuff. So
Yeah, we're doing the
I yeah,
doing
got my
the
hopes up.
little fake out here. Okay, cool. So, Rocky, 1976. We're going back a ways.
Way back. Way
We're
back
going
to the
back a
70s.
ways.
Yeah.
Rated PG.
Yep. Which this was before PG-13 was a thing. So the PG-13 rating didn't exist yet. So you had
Right.
PG, and R. Those were
Right.
the
Right.
those were the only ratings. So
Um, let's see. IMDb rating 8.1 out of 10 is what I have in our notes.
yeah. Yeah, this is pretty high up in like the I if you were to pull up the IMDb movie ranking, I think it's top 20, I think. I could be
Okay.
wrong. I could be wrong.
I'm not
But
sure.
yeah,
I
but
actually don't know that.
8.1 is really high. So I didn't include that in here. I should have, but yeah, it's really high up there for a good reason. It's probably one of the most well-known movies ever made. But yeah.
All
So very
seven,
very
seven of them.
I don't know if all seven of them are some of the most well-known movies or best loved movies or whatever, but yeah, at the very least, this one and probably Rocky 2 for sure. But
Yeah. Rocky 3 is
uh,
pretty often quoted with the Russian.
yeah, yeah.
So cool. Rotten Tomato
How
scores.
many?
Go ahead. I'm
Hold
sorry.
on. How many of them have you seen? Have you seen all seven? Or I guess
Yeah,
if you include the Creed movies,
I've seen them all.
you've seen them all. Okay,
I've seen them all.
I think I've only seen Rocky, so Rocky 1, and Creed 1.
Oh wow.
So I
No.
haven't seen. That's all
So
I've seen.
are there seven? I'm pretty sure there's. I know there's one, two, three. Was the Russian 4? Wasn't he in the cabin? And well, I shouldn't ask you. You don't know, right? Because you haven't
Yeah,
seen
you
him.
shouldn't
So
ask me. Yeah, I've
I think
probably seen clips, but
it's been a long
not
time
the
since
full
I've seen
movie.
them all. I'm pretty sure maybe there's 5 of them, not 7. And then Creed 1, 2, and 3, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I've seen all the Creed movies, and there was a lot of drama when I know we're not reviewing Creed, but it's kind of a spin-off series, and it's important to,
Mm-hmm.
to talk about and note here, document. But the third Creed movie ushered in some drama from
Really.
a source that may or may not be reliable. I've heard murmurs and rumors that there was something to do with the rights, and they pushed Sylvester Stallone out of the third Creed movie, and they took the rights from him, or there was something sketchy that happened where he wasn't going to be on the project. So they were going to do something, and they took the rights from him, or something like that, and then he decided to back out of the project and was telling people not to go see it.
Hmm.
Interesting.
Normal entertainment industry stuff, but still
Very
shady.
normal, but
Yeah.
shady. Interesting.
Yeah.
What was the budget, Nick?
I actually don't know what the budget was. Uh, for the time, it was. I don't know. Do you know what the budget was? I don't have the budget in front of me.
No, I thought maybe you were putting it off to the side here, but it looks like from what I'm reading, 117 million was pulled in the United States, and then 225 worldwide.
Worldwide. Yeah,
Is
and
that
so
right?
that's the
Okay.
initial. Yeah, that's the initial release too. I don't know, this has been in theaters so many different times at this point that that number has gone up.
Mhm.
But that's what it made in its initial release,
Okay.
which is for the 70s is incredible.
Okay.
Like
Yeah.
that is
No,
a
that's a lot of money
huge
back then.
huge number for the 70s. And I would guess, if I had to guess, I would say that's in like the 400 million range if you adjust it for inflation. Like if you put it at
Right.
today's ticket prices, that's probably in like the 400 million range. So that's incredibly successful even in its own time.
I wish I knew the budget. That'd be interesting to know, to
Yeah.
do that
I think I
comparison.
and I don't, this is kind of just off the top of my head. I think I saw once that it was um just under a million maybe. So like in the 900,000
I'm gonna pull it up and see.
range.
Let me see if I can pull this up quickly so we can keep moving. Got a lot of stuff to cover here. Let's see. You're right, 960 million. Good call. Well done,
Yeah.
sir. The 117 was gross US and Canada.
Right. So yeah, that's usually called domestic. They use
Domestic box office. Yeah.
North
Yeah.
American. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. And
Yep.
then that brings us to Rotten Tomatoes, right?
Yep. 92% critics, 69% audience, which is
That's
kind of surprising
usually
to me.
that's very surprising. That's usually the other way
Yeah.
around.
And especially for a movie that's this loved. Like
Yeah.
this is considered this not, I mean, among everyone I think I've ever talked to, they love Rocky. I don't
Mhm.
think I've ever met somebody that has seen it that was like, I just hated that movie. That was not a good movie. Yet
Mhm.
it's just got a 69%. That's kind of surprising. But so the critical consensus says this story of a down on his luck boxer is thoroughly predictable, which is probably true. But Sylvester Stallone's script and stunning performance in the title role brush aside complaints. So pretty positive consensus there, summarizing all the reviews that they have. But still, that 69% is surprising to me because, um, I mean, so many people love this movie and love
Yeah, it's
the
very well loved.
series.
That's right.
Yeah.
For
So
sure.
yeah.
Do we even, I mean, it's, I mean, 1976, it's that old. Do we need to even go into the synopsis, you think?
Now I think people should probably know it, but just know it's a boxing movie. If you don't know, you should probably go. You should go. You should go watch Rocky before listening to this episode. And if you haven't seen it yet at this point, and continue to listen, and spoilers are on you at this point if it's from the
Right.
'70s. So,
For sure.
which we say that every episode anyway, but this one especially shouldn't really. You shouldn't really be concerned with spoilers for a 40-year-old movie. So.
Cool. All right, so we've got a few themes that we're going to talk about today in this episode, and I'm just going to rattle them off. There's 5 of them, and then we can go one by one. The first one is, why does the film open with an image of Jesus but never return to it? And then, in addition to that, in what way does the image set the tone for the story? Theme 2, the significance of being chosen. There's 3 subpoints to this one: a bum fighting bums whose locker was given away, chosen by the heavyweight champion. And then we've got some Bible verses to wrap that one up. And 3, how to turn your life around. 4, the fear of dying without living. And then number 5, how Rocky's success sends Paulie in a downward spiral and a sense of entitlement.
Mhm.
So let's just jump right in, Nick, because this is, most people have seen this movie. I don't think we need to go through the characters. So let's just jump into number 1. Why does the film open with an image of Jesus but never return to it? In what way does this set the tone for the story?
Yeah, and that's something I just wanted to talk about because um, I'd seen it. So I watched it, just a couple nights ago to get ready for recording this. And I'd seen it before. But when the image of Jesus popped up on the screen at the very beginning, I was surprised because I didn't remember it being there. And I don't remember where I was when I saw Rocky for the first time, um, the opening scene, the opening image of the movie, is a picture of a painting of Christ. And so for those people that would call that a second commandment violation, for a lot of our reformed friends, sorry, don't watch Rocky. But but when a filmmaker is putting together their film, when they're writing it, everything has a purpose. Everything is done with intent. And
Mhm.
I don't think that I can remember, I don't think a theme or even mention at all of religion ever comes again in
Mhm.
the film. Like there's no church scene. There's no that I can think of. I can't remember any moment where a specific theme of Christianity or religion ever comes up in the movie at all. Not a piece of dialogue, nothing. Yet, Jesus is on purpose the first thing Sylvester Stallone wanted you to see in the film. Why? And so that makes me ask, why did they do that? What could possibly be some reasons, and how does that connect to the story? So I wanted to get your thoughts, and then obviously people can comment if they have their thoughts too, or they disagree with what we come up with. But I just thought that would be an interesting discussion point. Why would they do that? Because usually that image is setting the tone for the rest of the film. So how does it, does it accomplish that goal? And if so, how? All kinds of things that we could um, talk about there.
Yeah, so if you're getting my thoughts, I guess I think that's a good thing to just how it sets the tone for the movie. I guess I didn't really think of that because I watched it and I think I've just always overlooked that scene and I've
Yeah.
never really put much thought into it. The things that come to mind though are maybe there's a hint at some type of gift or second chance or some type of maybe redemptive, what would that be called, maybe some type of redemptive hinting at of
Hmm.
of a previous life. Rocky, we have it in the synopsis here, but most people have seen the movie. So Rocky's a down on his luck kind of boxer, kind of kicked out of the gym. His locker was given away. He's fighting like kind of has been fights and all this stuff. And I guess there could be a link between the first frame of the movie with a free gift of the title
Hmm.
with a nudge towards maybe a redemptive choice to take the fight, I guess. Maybe. I don't know. I'm kind of thinking out loud and off the cuff here, but those are just some of the things that maybe come to mind.
Yeah, I think you're right, spot on with all that because if you were to pick out one major theme, it's probably redemption. Um,
But then
and
I
I
think
don't
redeemed from what? Because I don't
right.
remember, and maybe you can fill this in. I don't. It seems like a big jump though. So like we can say that from our own presuppositions. That would be an easy
Hmm.
jump to make. But someone else watching the movie may not make that jump because it doesn't follow. Let me be more clear. Sorry, more precise. The image of Christ does not follow a bad choice or you know something to that effect. Does that make sense?
Yeah, unless you consider Rocky when we meet him in the story is just a series, like his life is a series of bad choices and bad circumstances. Right? I mean, like at the point that we meet him,
You mean
because
like
we see him.
assuming that right initially. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So like his entire life, because right after that image, isn't it him? Isn't that first opening scene? So he has like the low level fight where he beats a guy, and then
Mhm.
he goes to the gym, and that's when he finds out his locker's been taken away. So maybe it has something to do with him like being cast aside. So they're setting the tone that, when we first meet Rocky, he's somebody who's being cast aside, but the image of Christ maybe gives the audience hope of Rocky's rise and rise to prominence and rise to glory and overcoming obstacles, maybe. I mean, maybe redemption in that sense could
Or
be what
yeah,
the
yeah, or even
filmmakers are going for.
yeah, I could see that, or even a maybe it's even more simple of Christ was a person who came as essentially a nobody
Mhm.
and then ended up being everything to everyone. And it was
Yeah.
and that's essentially Rocky's journey from the beginning to the end because, spoiler alert of course, but even though he didn't win the final fight, there's a lot to say about maybe what you gain along the way
Mhm.
and the importance of relationships and that the victory is not just in the glamour, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It's in the process and the hard work and the friendships and the love. So maybe there's a what would the word be? Like a dichotomy maybe? I don't know if that's the right word, but between coming from nothing because Rocky's dream you would assume would be to win the title.
Mhm.
But on the back end of the film, he kind of shifts into something different. And now that we're talking about this, it's kind of making me think of like, I wanted what I don't want what I wanted, and I want what I didn't want.
Mhm.
What is that? Romans is that Romans chapter 6? Um, where
Somewhere around there.
somewhere something
7
like
maybe.
that. But what I'm
Yeah.
saying is, if I can get this out, at the beginning of the film, you would think that the person that Rocky is wants to be the world heavyweight champion.
Mhm.
But somewhere along the way, he stops caring because at the end of the final fight, they're announcing the split decision. You'd think everybody would be involved in that and completely captivated by that. And what is Rocky doing? He's yelling for Adrian.
Yeah. He's
So
uninterested.
he's
Yeah.
completely detached from the title and he wants the girl. He wants the girl, and he was completely fulfilled with his performance in himself. So the win was not the title, the win was going the distance with Apollo to prove to himself that he could do it, and the award was his love interest
Mhm.
in a way.
So, you talking about that just brought this to mind, and I might butcher it as I'm trying to say it, but so, again, going back to the image of Christ, if we were to you talked about how the process or the journey to get to that fight, all the preparation and things like that were as important as the journey. And so if I try to make that again, because the movie demands us to, making a parallel back to Jesus, and the movie opens with that image, I wonder if there's something in there, whether intended or not, that's pointing to the fact that Jesus came in, entered the world as a lowly, humiliated, and I'd mean that in like a humbling way, not like humiliation, oh, I'm so embarrassed type of way, but Jesus is humbled in the form of a child and enters the world, and from that moment was being prepped, and everything that happened was to get him to the cross. And the cross is the final fight. The cross is him going to battle with sin. And even though in that moment it appears sin won because Christ died, Christ had ultimate victory over sin because of his death. He went the distance and then ultimately overcame that and was greater than given glory, set at the right hand of God, um, as a result of that. So I wonder if there's parallels there to that. So Christ being prepped and prepared, going the distance with sin, dying on the cross, and then rising to even greater glory. And then obviously for us as Christians, he gives us a gift and allows us to share in that glory and gives us himself and his love and salvation, because of that victory, because he went the distance. But I'm wondering if there can be parallels made between that journey, Jesus's journey, and the journey of Rocky getting to that fight, and even though he seemingly loses the fight, coming out with greater prominence and greater glory than he came into it with. Um, so that was just a thought on that. But so yeah, the image of Jesus is one that kind of baffled me at the start. But yeah, there's definitely purpose and reasons that the filmmaker, which is Stallone, he didn't direct it, but he did write it. Um, reasons why he would have included that for sure.
Yeah, but it's good to point out because as you stated at the very beginning of this, it's not often that you see something in the first frame of a movie and then it not even come up in the movie after that. Like, not
Yeah, never
even
just
in the
yeah.
dialogue, there's no other church scene like you said. There's no I don't remember even a prayer, like
Huh,
a prayer before the fight or, you know, some movies to demonstrate some type of culture, there's like a hard Catholic theme or a Christian theme or some type of religious theme to help
yeah.
help us understand who the characters are and maybe to relate a little bit deeper than just, this is John and he likes to do these things. You get to kind of
Mhm.
connect on more of a human level because people are different and they have a bunch of different characteristics and I don't know, it's just not I'm glad you pointed that out because it's not very often that you see that.
Absolutely. And who was so I actually wanted to say this and it just came back to mind, but you said when Rocky at the end, when everyone should be focused on the judge's decision, right? They went the distance and now it's time for the
Mhm.
judge's decision. What's he concerned with? The girl.
Right.
In a similar way, everyone's focused on the death of Christ. What is he concerned with? His bride, the church.
Mhm. That's
And
right.
that's what he's ultimately trying to gather to himself is the church. Just like Rocky is calling out to Adrian, Jesus is calling out to the church to come to him as his
That's
bride.
right.
Um,
Mhm.
yeah, interesting.
Super interesting, man.
Yeah.
Okay, so the significance of being chosen.
Yep. So, how does Rocky get the fight to begin with?
Just well, Apollo saw him fight and then chose him.
Yeah. So Apollo had a fight canceled, and then he's trying to find a. Does he actually just chooses him from a list of names, right?
Yeah,
From a, and it's he chooses him because his name is like the ultimate Philadelphia, or maybe I can't remember if they used if they referred to him as um, like the
the
ultimate
Italian
Philadelphia,
stallion.
the Italian style. I can't remember exactly what they say about him, but it's something about the name Rocky Balboa that they is why Apollo chooses him. But it's that choice, something that Rocky had absolutely nothing to do with. Rocky had no influence over the fact that he was chosen. Like he was a name on a list to Apollo, and he didn't Rocky didn't pick his own name, anything. He had nothing to do with why he was chosen. Yet it's the choice of the champion, the choice of Apollo that brings Rocky into prominence, that brings Rocky into this amazing position where he can attain and achieve something amazing. So it is the choice of Apollo in the film that ultimately transforms Rocky's life because the film is about how Rocky seized that opportunity. He trained hard. He was working to actually be in a position where he could compete and where he could achieve something amazing. But he literally had nothing to lose. Like the story is he's a bum, right? He's a nobody. And the choice of the king, the champion, I'm getting ahead of myself. The choice of the champion is what made Rocky no longer a bum. It's not Rocky's effort. Sure, he put effort forward and he took advantage of the opportunity, but it wasn't Rocky's effort that brought him to prominence. It was a choice of somebody else and a choice that Rocky had nothing to do with because he was just a bum who was fighting other bums and he wasn't even important enough to keep a locker in the gym, right? Wasn't even important enough. But as soon as I keep saying the king, I keep getting ahead of myself because of where I'm going with it. But um, as soon as the champ chooses Rocky, that all changes. his status is forever changed. And he could have gone in there and been knocked out in 2 seconds in the fight, and Rocky's status was still changed. No matter what happened in that fight, Rocky was forever changed. And so it is a choice by someone else that gives Rocky his prominence and his new found value. And so I just wanted to read Ephesians chapter 1, starting in verse 3, I believe. And it says, "Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, who has blessed us in Christ with every spiritual blessing in the heavenly places, even as he chose us in him before the foundation of the world, that we should be holy and blameless before him. In love, he predestines us for adoption as sons through Jesus Christ, according to the purpose of his will, to the praise of his glorious grace, with which he has blessed us in the beloved." So God, the Father, through Jesus Christ, has already blessed us with every spiritual blessing, even as he chose us in him before the foundation of the world. And this is part of Paul's introduction to the church of Ephesus. So his letter to the Ephesian church, this is his introduction, and he's introducing what he's going to talk about later, and he's giving the church confidence of who they are in Christ. So you could go through this and pick out words and in this intro and say, what is the identity of a believer? Well, first, blessed. Okay. You've been blessed with every spiritual blessing in Christ. Okay. What else is the identity of a believer? Well, he chose us in him. So you are chosen. And it's just as you have been blessed, you have been chosen. So it is this choosing of God that forever changes your status and forever changes your value, apart from anything you could have ever hoped to do. Because just as his blessing is every blessing, which means there's nothing you can do to earn the blessing if he's given it, it says, even as he chose us in him. So there's nothing you can do to earn his choosing either. So just like Rocky couldn't have any influence over the fact that he was chosen by the heavyweight champion to rise to this moment, rise to the position of prominence and fame, we have no influence over the God who has chosen us and given us a similar prominence, a similar position of influence, and a similar position of glory right with him. And so he's chosen us to be his, and nothing can take that away from us, even when we fall on our face, even when we absolutely fail. And we do have choices to make. We can rise to the occasion and try to live holy lives and do what he expects of us, or we can fall on our face. But either one of those things have no impact on whether we've been chosen and given this new status by God. So our position is based on his choosing, and that is the significance of being chosen. So just as Rocky is chosen and brought to fame, we too have been chosen by God and brought to our position and status before him.
That's good, man. It's really
Yep.
good. I think we should just move on because that was really good.
Yep.
How to turn your life around.
Yeah. So with that, I think it's just kind of the there's less specifics about that one, other than just to point out that Rocky's life wasn't what he wanted it to be. Right. I think that's fair to say. He talks down about himself. It seems like the only area that he has any confidence whatsoever is when he's trying to pursue and ask out Adrian.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the only time he
Yeah.
ever has any type of self-confidence or anything.
Very self-deprecating humor.
Yeah. And
when he's wooing her and trying to get her to open up out of her shell.
mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, but ultimately, talking about him being chosen by the champ to fight and that turning his life around, he did have some choices to make about, am I going to actually put in the work and go into this fight ready? Am I going to do everything I can to be the best that I can possibly be? Or am I just going to take this and it's the end of it? I've been chosen. And if I go down in a few seconds, I go down. Like, he had a choice to make. And through some of those, through his choices, he was able to turn his life around and ultimately be where he wanted to be and achieve goals and dreams that he had and things that he never thought possible otherwise.
I think it's also worth pointing out when we talk about how to turn your life around, and I think you're touching on this too, but there's a lot of opportunities that come to us as a general statement, and we fail to see them as opportunities. So I think it's
Yeah,
important to point
absolutely.
out that
Yeah.
if you want to turn your life around and you're in a bad spot, or you don't have a lot of self-confidence, maybe it's finances, or maybe you want to start a business, or maybe you have this dream, insert dream here, you know, you've got to look at every single problem as an opportunity to solve the problem and be better. There's a changing, and it's kind of the same path that you were talking about that Rocky went on. If he would have gotten this opportunity and he wouldn't have taken it, because at the beginning he said no.
Yeah, he said no.
So if he wouldn't have taken it, then he wouldn't have changed. If he would have continued to persist and say no, I'm a nobody, I fight bums, I am a
Hmm.
bum, it's not, no, I'm not your guy, then I think it's I think that's where regret seeps in, is where you don't have the confidence at the time the opportunity comes, and then you don't take it, and then later you regret not trying. And
Hmm.
as encouragement, I would just anybody that's listening to this, I would say go for it. Just find a way. Now it may be harder, your circumstances may be more difficult than somebody else's, but it doesn't mean that there's not a way out. And that's just what I'm talking about. Every problem is an opportunity to solve and get better, get into a better situation, because no help is coming and no one cares about you or your family as much as you. So it's on you, and I think ultimately that's kind of how God designed it, is for us men to get to the point to where I'm remembering back. I know I'm flipping movies here, but that's what we do here at the WatchWell Podcast. We string movie scenes together to help us understand the world a little bit better. Nick, when was the last time you watched Transformers? The very first one
Oh,
with
it's
Shia LaBeouf.
it's probably been like 10 years or so.
Okay, so maybe I can explain it and maybe you'll remember, maybe not. But so it's Shia LaBeouf and Megan Fox. Okay.
Hmm.
And there's a point at which you can tell that the movie is starting to approach the climax. And I think that wow, I'm forgetting the director now.
Michael Bay.
JJ Michael Bay. I almost, yeah, I was thinking JJ Abrams, so I was like, that's not right. Michael Bay captured this feeling in this scene very well, where Bumblebee pulls up, he drives up and he slides into the parking lot and the door opens. And Megan Fox's character kind of has this look of reservation and hesitation on her face. And Sam turns to her and says something to the effect of, 20 years from now, are you going to want to look back and say you had the guts to get in the car? And I kind of think that that's how we should start looking at, especially men, how we should start looking at the opportunities that come our way. And we need to think right now, I may be insecure or I may be not the man I need to be to tackle this, but through tackling it, I will become that person that I want to be. And that's the process that Rocky goes on, is through the training he becomes a different person, and he elevates to meet the challenge. So I would just say that as some encouragement, you know, go for it and find ways to solve those problems so that it can work out because it's up to you. It's up to us. And yeah, I think that we need to be like we need to kind of capitalize on those things.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't have anything to say to that. Yeah, I think that's
Okay,
good.
cool.
Yeah.
The fear of dying without living,
Yeah.
which
This
kind of is a
is
great segue.
yeah.
I kind of forgot
Yeah.
about this
It's
point.
it's it's
That was
absolutely
not planned.
connected. Um so yeah, so this came to mind with the scene when Mickey shows up at Rocky's apartment trying to convince Rocky to let Mickey be the manager for this fight
Mhm.
and help get him ready and all of that stuff and be there with him. And um Mickey seems extraordinarily desperate, and he's trying his best to be a salesman, trying to sell Rocky on the idea, and Rocky is absolutely opposed. Like, in Rocky's mind at this moment, Mickey's the guy that took his locker, who didn't think highly enough of him to keep his spot there at the gym. And earlier in the movie, I think when Rocky's asking why, didn't Mickey say something like, because you had the potential to be great and you did nothing with it, or something like that's not a exact quote, but he says something like that. That's why he treats him so poorly or is so hard on him or whatever the conversation was at the time. But because Rocky had so much potential and he did nothing with it, I think is what Mickey says um, in that scene. But Mickey, when Rocky's turning
Real
him
quick, can
down,
I interject here real quick?
yeah, go for it. Go for it.
So maybe this is where you're going, and I apologize for interrupting if this is where you're going. But before you say any more, I'm curious as to who you related to most in that moment. So I'm remembering the scene that you're talking about. They're screaming at each other, and I think Rocky goes into the bathroom and shuts the door.
Yeah. Yeah.
In
That's
that
what I'm talking about.
exact moment, who do you relate to the most? Do you relate to Mickey, or Rocky? I'm curious.
Hmm. That's tough.
Well, you're thinking I'm gonna say that I related to Rocky because
Okay.
and well, you know what? Maybe not. I'm not gonna tell you yet. I'll say I
Okay.
relate to Rocky the most, but I'm not gonna tell you why because it flows
Okay.
into our next point really well.
Yeah.
So
So I'm not really sure who I related to most. I kind of when I was watching that scene, I don't think I could put myself in either one of their shoes much, like in terms of relating it to my own experience. But I could definitely I felt for both of them because I could see, like, on their own terms where their reactions were coming from, if that makes sense. Like, I didn't relate
that
to
makes
it in the
sense.
sense of, man, I really feel like I could put myself in their shoes. I didn't feel
And
like that.
that's more of what I meant is whose
Yeah.
point or whose side did you understand the most? Who had the more uh correct point to stand on is really what I was getting at. And
Yeah.
whose side did you pick? Because
Yeah.
I felt myself aligning more with Rocky than Mickey.
So, like, you think Rocky should have maintained his no answer, or you just
I'm
think
not
that
saying
he
that
was
he should have. No, I'm saying that I would have. I think I'm validating his feelings more
I
than
never I
Mickey's.
never thought I would hear you use that phrase.
I can. Well, I see where you're coming from, and that's really funny. But what I'm saying is, so I guess I'll play my hand here a little bit to
Okay.
elaborate, and then we could go back to your point. But so we're talking about Mickey and Rocky. Rocky gets this opportunity, and then it seems as if Mickey comes out of nowhere to
Absolutely it
piggyback
does.
off of his opportunity, off of Rocky's opportunity.
Mhm.
And I think it's very interesting. So I felt like, well, if I was Rocky, I'd feel the same way
Yeah.
because I've got this opportunity and I want to go find somebody that's going to train me that actually believes in me, not the guy that, was telling me that I was a washed up has been for the
Mhm.
last however many years, and now wants, a piece of the pie or wants the fame of being a trainer because, the leeches come out of everywhere
Mhm.
when opportunities of that magnitude come along. And that's why you got to know your people, and you got to have a good inner circle of people that is going to, kind of ride or die with you. But that's kind of where I was, and then that kind of spills into the next point of more of a the opposite reaction with
Mhm.
Polly. And I think that that's a really good juxtaposition of the two characters, where you have one that's trying to leech. We find out later that it was kind of a match made in heaven, and it was really good that Rocky let Mick train him. But then on the other side of that, you've got the family member, the buddy, who is seeing everything that he could have if he took those opportunities, smaller in degree. But Rocky's, dating his sister now, and that's
Mhm.
going really well. He gets this title fight, and that's going really well, and he's getting a lot of attention, and now he's gonna, fight for the title, and he's getting a lot of fame, and everything's going well. And Paulie just kind of sends himself down this spiral of, what would you call it, self-indulgence and
S
destruction.
yeah, maybe
Like,
self-hatred even. Like,
you know,
he's
so I just thought that those juxtapositions, or the two comparing the two character arcs, was interesting. And that's where I was
yeah.
kind of going with that, to see where your thoughts were on maybe who had the more, I guess, correct feeling in that moment. It's good that they both
Yeah.
overcame it, and whatever, but I was
And
curious as to what you thought.
I wonder if when so in that blow up where so before that point where Mickey tells Rocky that he had potential and wasted it, I wonder if anyone before that moment had ever told Rocky that he had potential. Like
That'd be interesting. Yeah.
even though it was in like a kind of this is why I'm treating you poorly kind of way, or like
Hmm.
almost like a tough love maybe
My
was the
actions are
motive.
justified. My
Yeah,
actions of treating you poorly are justified because you didn't, use your talent
right.
in the right way, didn't reach your full
But
potential, whatever.
but at the same time, it's also acknowledgement that Rocky had potential.
That's correct. And if he did have potential, then why wasn't Mickey a good enough coach to bring it out of him?
Yeah. Yeah, there's all kinds of questions
There's
there
all
with those
kinds of,
characters and the
there's
relationship.
yeah. So
Yeah.
it's kind of a what's the word? They're both guilty is what it comes down
Yeah.
to. They're
Yeah.
both guilty of the same thing.
Yeah.
One just got
Yeah.
the opportunity and the other didn't. And I mean, you could have had the same movie if Mick got the opportunity to train Apollo Creed, and Rocky would have wanted to be a sparring partner. You would have had the same
Or
movie.
something. Yeah.
Something similar, you know?
Yeah. So it could be similar, yeah, but just from a different perspective. Um, but yeah, both Rocky and even I didn't even think about it in terms of Polly necessarily, but you bringing it up definitely creates a a good connection there. Um, because I think part of Polly's being mad is kind of like his friend passing him by, right? Like his friend leaving him behind, and not even that
Mhm.
there's anything that could be done about that, but like, and I think I could relate to that. I mean, I've never been like had any outbursts or anything. I've never swung a bat at a lampshade or anything and tried and property destruction or anything like that as a result. But just that idea where somebody that once considered yourself on even playing field with is kind of passing you by and moving on to bigger things that a friend or family or whoever it might be that can be definitely be a relatable and difficult thing to go through.
See, I don't even know if I give Paulie that much credit. I think that what you're saying would be true for the reasonable person, to be introspective and say, "You know what? It is my fault. My life is the way it is because of me, And that's essentially what you were just laying out. But what Paulie does is he goes back to, it's not fair that he got this opportunity and I didn't, and he's my friend and he owes me something, whatever. He owes me. And that jealousy leads to entitlement when, if we're going to love our neighbors as ourselves and we're going to submit to God, then it doesn't really matter what comes our way or our friends' way. We need to be happy for the blessings that they get and the opportunities that they capitalize on, and we need to celebrate our friends and family. And we need to celebrate other people that get those opportunities and take advantage of them. And then in submission to God, this is the path that I'm going on, and I can only steward the opportunities that I'm given, and they're given from above. So we just have to really kind of get back to the roots of humility, I think. And in this sense is this kind of metaphor example, and really just be happy for those that good fortune smiles on. And when I say good fortune, I mean, if you're gonna make $1 million, then that's a blessing that God has given you, and you need to steward that well, no differently than if you make a lesser amount of money to whatever degree, you need to steward that, and the stewardship and the submission to God is equal, and celebrate those together as a body of believers, I think is important.
So with that, the movie is incredibly like motivating, right? You watch Rocky, it's one of those classic sports movies that makes you want to go do something. If you're you want to go work out or you want to go like accomplish something because it's motivating. But um one of the things I think a movie like this brings out in people, and this is kind of what I was talking about with Polly, and I'm totally on board with you. I don't know that his character necessarily was introspective enough to recognize this, but I do think there's probably some underlying fear there about living without doing anything that matters, whether he believes it's his own fault or whether he's blaming somebody else for that. And so like I think most people can acknowledge that there are those who go through life and they're existing, but they never truly live. Like they're not actually living life. They're just kind of going through life, and it is what it is. And I think we've seen that before, and I think that also relates back to the Christian life as well, because we've been made alive through Christ, right? He has given us life through his life, death, and resurrection. He has brought us to life, given us new life. But then from that moment, you can be alive and not truly live. And so like Romans 12:1, for example, is kind of where I'm going with this. I appeal to you, therefore, brothers, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice. And I'm actually going to stop there before the verse even ends. So the nature of death is to rebel against God through suppressing your knowledge of him and disobeying him and seeking your own glory. So we have a choice to make every single day of our lives of if we're going to live for death or if we're going to live in him. And the only way to truly live is to obey and glorify God. And we have that choice to make where we can live for him or we can live for death. And we can know. And this is where the message of the gospel should like run through walls and like meet Polly and Mickey and Rocky exactly where they are, because when you are truly living, meaning again, obeying, knowing God, and living for his glory, you know that everything now matters. The thing, even the mundane, even somebody like Polly, who probably doesn't see his career as something that's all that important, going to the, he's working in the meat freezer or whatever, he's a butcher and he's doing all that stuff, or Mickey, who's like, my prime was years and years and years ago, and now I'm just this trainer at a low level gym with nobodies and bums that I'm training and not seeing any success, or you're Rocky who sees himself as a bum fighting bums who is just nothing and trying to make ends meet. When your life changes and you truly live following Christ, everything is transformed and everything now matters, has stakes, and is important and adds value if, again, you're living for Him and following Him with everything that you have and seeking to bring Him glory. So that's how we find that meaning, that life, that living that Mickey's trying to find when he repeats over and over again. I'm 76 years old. I'm 76 years old. I'm 76 years old. Like, and he's saying it as kind of a lament, as talking like time is passing me by. Well, you can train or not train Rocky, but you can still live regardless of that decision. You don't have to have any identity or anything in that decision. Live for Christ and live for His glory, and everything gains meaning and prominence from that moment forward.
That's good stuff, man, for sure. All right, guys, we are back this year. Obviously, we've had last week's episode was Nefarious. If you haven't checked that out, go ahead and head over to YouTube or any podcast platform that you consume content and check us out there. And let's see, subscribe, click the notification bell so you never miss an episode, and follow us on social media. We are on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Go ahead and subscribe over there. Like the page and follow us so you don't miss any housekeeping information if you enjoy the video. And we will see you next video. Hey guys, it's Parker from the WatchWell Podcast. If you like this video, we want to go ahead and have you subscribe right here on this button. If you want to watch the full podcast episode, go ahead and click right here. And if you want to watch another WatchWell clip, go ahead and click right here. And remember, if you're going to watch well. We'll see you in the next one.